What's up, everybody? Welcome on into the slate. It's great to be here with you. We had the sweat earlier today, which is kind of blowing my mind because I was there. Gary and Thorne, who's with us now, was there. We spoke earlier, and it was so many hours ago, Gary, and that honestly, it doesn't even feel like the same day. And Matt LaMarca was not on that show, but he's here on this show, and we're living in the moments. That's all that counts.
Yeah. I mean, I wore the same sweater just so you wouldn't get confused.
Yeah, I also did not change or shower or clean up in any way.
There we go. We're on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, why leave the house? Why clean up? Just talk to people on the internet. That's what we do. All right, it's good to see everybody. We're going to do a little bit of NBA later in the show. We got a 5-game slate on the horizon tonight. It's a little bit lighter, obviously, and still some question marks in terms of who is going to be available versus ruled out. So we'll get all of that squared away as best we can to help you out. And naturally, we will look ahead to the NFL on a brand new week, a playoff week for many of you out there, and season-long football, and much to be obtained and sought after in the world of DraftKings Sportsbook and DFS as well. There's a Thursday game, which we will talk about. There's uncertainty there. We were just talking about that off air a little bit between San Francisco and Seattle. And it's Saturday, Sunday action now. You got 3 games on Saturday, and then another whole bunch, about a dozen, I think, all said and done, maybe 11 on Sunday. So we'll get to all of that as much as we have time for anyway, a little bit later on. But first, guys, what I'd like to do is start with the week that was, and at least the most recent game, and that was the Patriots winning in Arizona pretty comfortably, a game that was never, I don't know, I guess it was in question. It was tied at halftime, the Patriots winning by 2 touchdowns against the Cardinals, but it was such a weird game, a painful game to watch as just an NFL fan. I don't even care if you're rooting for one of those teams in particular. Just as a football fan, it was an ugly, kind of disgusting game. Injuries all over the place. Kyler Murray went down on the 3rd play of the game. Doesn't look like he's going to play again this season. You had the Patriots down their top 2 receivers, down their top 2 running backs. Mac Jones did nothing spectacular. And yet they win and they move back into a playoff position. So how, Gary, and just to begin with you, did you feel about last night, and did you learn anything from that game?
I mean, it was an ugly, sort of uninspiring brand of football. Yeah, and I don't really know how many lessons you can take from it. Like you said, there were so many variables, particularly injury variables, where I don't really know if we learned anything definitive about either team, or at least I don't think we learned anything new. The Cardinals are a flawed team that going into last night, that was only the 2nd game they were going to have Kyler Murray, Hollywood Brown, and DeAndre Hopkins all healthy at the same time. And as you say, Koff, it lasted 3 plays. So for as much as I do think Cliff Kingsbury needs to lose his job and should lose his job, I mean, this has just been a season from hell for the Arizona Cardinals when it comes to injuries and just players being unavailable. On the Patriots side of things, yeah, I mean, losing Ramondre Stevenson's massive. We don't really know as of yet how serious that injury might be, but I don't think I learned anything particularly new. Sorry.
Just to cut you off for a sec, he was asked about the ankle after the game and said he's hopeful to play Sunday in Vegas. So that's the very latest we know about him.
I would also love to play professional football this weekend. So
he's got a better chance.
Yeah. But look, I mean, I wrote up that game Monday morning, and one of my big takeaways on just how to use the Patriots in DFS, I mean, they're kind of like a Bernie Sanders fever dream when it comes to how much they spread out the football on offense. Like, their best receiver last week was a cornerback. So it's a team that just, for better or for worse, utilizes all of its pass game options. They're going to play like 40 to 60% of the snaps. Everyone's going to get like 3 targets. And that's that. And Mac Jones has one of the lowest touchdown rates in the NFL, and the offense is underwhelming and the defense is really good. So again, I don't think I came away from that game being like, wow, I learned something tonight. It was just like the status quo.
Although I guess I'll ask you this, LaMarca, because on the Arizona side, as Gary alluded to, there isn't a lot to talk about simply because they were already a bad team. They're going to continue to be a bad team for the duration of this season. They're not going anywhere. It's not like there's an interesting bet to make in terms of their future. The Patriots are interesting, at least this far. You know, they're the 7th team in the AFC. They're right there in that final playoff position. I say position because it's not like they've clinched anything. It's a dogfight with the likes of your Jets, the Chargers are in the mix. Other teams are in the hunt as well. And there are just a bunch of teams that are sort of all jammed together in that conference. So if you look at the DraftKings Sportsbook and will the Patriots make the playoffs? Right now, they're sitting at plus 200. Yes. Minus 250. No. It's a relatively difficult schedule the rest of the way that the Pats have.
Relatively.
Yeah, I mean, it's
really difficult.
Well, I mean, it's the last two, the Bills and the Dolphins are really difficult. I think the Raiders and the Bengals are more winnable games.
The Bengals are the best team on that schedule by far.
The Bengals are
might
going to
be
be
the second
road
best team in the
favorites.
AFC.
I'm not saying that the Patriots can't win, because I think if this season has taught us anything, it's that there's basically no team that can't win on any given week. But the Bengals will be favorites in Foxborough. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, they'll definitely be favorites. I guess I just mean, when I think about going to Buffalo versus being at home against Cincinnati.
Okay, but you said Cincinnati and Miami. I would be much more afraid of the Bengals than the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
Granted, the Patriots haven't beat the Dolphins in 4 years.
And by the way, I could see them losing next week in Las Vegas too, for what it's worth.
I could see them losing all four. It's, I could see them going 2-2. I could, 3-1 would surprise me. 4-0 is impossible, but I could see them losing all of them. So it's not like anything is etched in stone for the Patriots. But that's why this is an interesting number to me. So which way would you bet this thing?
I would take the no. I obviously always preface anything when I'm talking about the Patriots with the fact that the Patriots have made my life miserable for the past 20 to 25 years. But I look at this team and I don't see a good football team. They might not be a bad football team, but they're just meh, right? Mac Jones now has more interceptions than touchdown passes on the year. If not for a defensive score, a couple turnovers, like Colt McCoy did move the ball against this Patriots defense, which I still think is kind of a paper tiger. I think that, now you're going to face 4 stiff tests, because even though the Raiders are not a good football team, they have a pretty good offense still. You're going to see 4 stiff tests, and we'll find out, I guess, how good this Patriots defense is. Because from what I have seen from them in recent weeks, when they are facing a good offensive team, they are not nearly as good as what their numbers suggest they should be.
Sure.
So I think that they're due for some regression in that department, and nothing that we've seen from the offense tells me that they can pick up the slack. So I am bearish on the Patriots' chances. The problem is that the AFC, that race for the 7 seed, it is pretty wide open. The Chargers, just when you think they're going to figure it out, they'll shoot themselves in the foot. They always do. And the Jets are probably even worse than the Patriots are. So it's really kind of just a battle of attrition for that last spot.
It really is sort of insane how this season is going to end up in the AFC with those, even if you want to say the last 2 positions. I think we can be relatively sure that the top 5 seeds in the AFC are pretty much locked in. I mean, the Titans kind of just have to win the AFC South out of necessity, or one of those teams, like maybe the Jaguars catch them. Who knows? I don't think so. But when you look at the Chargers' upcoming schedule versus the Patriots' schedule, that's definitely where I would lean with Matt in saying that the Patriots are justified in being underdogs to make the playoffs. I mean, the Dolphins also have a hard schedule, but those 8 wins they currently have are carrying a lot of weight. The Jets, it seemed like their schedule might be easy 5 weeks ago, and suddenly they're only a half-point favorite against the Lions in New York this week. So that schedule is pretty tough. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to week 17, week 18, when the Patriots, the Jets, and the Dolphins just all play each other twice, and it'll kind of come out in the wash at that point. But I think the Chargers, I mean, now that they're healthy, I mean, at least offensively, they're healthy. I know Nick Bosa was back at practice, or Joey Bosa, was back at practice last week, didn't play on Sunday night, but you add him in. Apparently Rashawn Slater is going to somehow be back before the end of the regular season. I'll believe it when I see it, but that narrative is really picking up steam. Corey Linsley's healthy again. Mike Evans and Keenan Allen got to play. I think they tripled their snap count for the season this weekend against the Dolphins. So they're getting healthy at the right time. I don't think the Derwin James injury is like crazy serious. He might not play this week, but he'll be back pretty soon. And they've got a Titans team that is reeling right now. They've got the Colts, they've got the Broncos, they've got the Rams. Like, the Chargers should really be able to take advantage of this schedule and work their way into a wild card spot. But as LaMarcus said, they are the Chargers. So nothing's ever as easy as it seems. But I do really think they have an inside track given the way this schedule is setting up.
To LaMarcus' point, by the way, about the opposing receivers that the Patriots have recently seen or will see in terms of just dangerous offenses on the other side. Looking back at the last few weeks, torched by Justin Jefferson, torched by Stephon Diggs, actually handled DeAndre Hopkins pretty well last night, but it was Colt McCoy throwing him the ball and not Kyler Murray, so that could have been a very different story. And coming up, you have Devontae Adams, obviously, what's his
And
face?
Waller, I think Waller and Renfro are going to be back for that game too. At least
So
that's
there-
the
so
way
there's-
things were
yeah, I
trending.
mean, and yeah, for sure. If you continue to think about Vegas, no, I was thinking about Cincinnati with Burrow, Jamar Chase, and then after that, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who have already both torched them this year, and then obviously Diggs again with Buffalo. So it's only. And I'm going to send myself into depression even thinking about it. It's only going to get uglier, obviously, for the bottom or mid tier of that conference. So, LaMarca, one thing I didn't ask you, but it's a good a time as any before we transition to a new week coming off the last one. How'd the bets do?
We won 4-1.
Hey,
Gracious.
Lost with the Cowboys. I thought they were going to roll the Texans. I laid the 16.5. That clearly did not work out. But we got wins with the 49ers, with the Jaguars, with the Broncos, and with Detroit.
What are you, like 52-16 or something? What's the number now?
50. I don't know. I have 19 losses. So however many wins, gets me to however many games. It's been a great year.
Are you top 10 in that contest again?
I forgot to hit submit on my picks.
No.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Oh.
So I don't know, Daniel, is there like a graphic that you can put up like, what an idiot? So I did have another great week of picking games for everybody, but I forgot to submit them in the contest that I'm writing about.
Well, constantly tell you, tail this man's picks, tune into this show a couple times a week when he's on at the very least, just to find out the information you need, because truly, if you've been paying attention from day one of this season, he has not been leading you astray, Matt LaMarca, when it comes to NFL picks. That in mind, and it's usually you give out your picks on Friday heading into the weekend, obviously. So this is nothing more than early thoughts. I'm not asking you to lock anything in for certain right now, but do you have anything early on that you're looking at that you're maybe favoring anyhow?
I've already jumped on the Colts for this week. I mean, again, I've kind of been fading the Vikings for a while now. It's not a huge surprise that I find myself fading the Vikings again. I just don't think they're a very good football team. They were outgained again by Detroit last week. Things just, went as planned, right? Detroit didn't have a fourth quarter meltdown, or, there wasn't a weird play that allowed the Vikings to win when they shouldn't have. They played worse and they lost. And that's kind of what's supposed to happen in the NFL. I also think the Colts are just a really undervalued team at the moment. With Matt Ryan under center, I think they're 2 games below 500. Now, granted, they're coming off of a huge blowout loss against the Cowboys, but that game was a 2-point game heading into the fourth quarter before Indianapolis just couldn't stop turning the ball over. And they also now there's a really nice trend about teams that are coming off of a 35 plus point loss in their last game. They tend to become undervalued in the betting market. They do really well. I don't have the exact number in front of me. It'll be in my article later this week. I'll probably quote it on the Friday show, but Colts, that's my early plant my flag pick of the week.
All right, let's move to Thursday here, because it is an interesting game. Can I use the word interesting here,
Yeah,
Gary? And I
it's
don't
probably one of the better Thursday. It's one of the more important Thursday games we've had in a while, which again, low bar to clear.
know.
But
True.
yeah, this is a good game. It's got question marks, but it's
Yeah.
a fun game.
Well, our good friends at Amazon are going to have a quite a game in front of them Thursday night in Seattle. 3.5-point dogs, the Seahawks against the visiting 49ers, who are assuming he's good to go, led by Brock Purdy, who just had his way with Tom Brady in his first career start. But obviously, the most notable news of this afternoon and going into that game as things sit right now, Adam Schefter, only about a half hour, 40 minutes ago, tweeted out, 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan told reporters he expects Deebo Samuel, wide receiver, to return from his knee and ankle injuries in around 3 weeks. So obviously he's not going to be available this week, may not be available at all for those of you that are thinking about your fantasy football season-long championship runs. But obviously for the sake of the postseason for the Niners, that could be good news for them. But for this week, what does it mean in terms of, is it the Brandon Ayuk show? Is it, what are we looking at here in terms of DFS or obviously early prop bets or the like that you might consider betting on the DraftKings Sportsbook?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's a really nice matchup. I mean, the Seahawks defense has some young playmakers in the secondary, but they are very susceptible to giving up big chunk plays, to giving up points, to giving up yardage. And I think a Kyle Shanahan offense should be able to take advantage of a defense this young. Now, the Purdy thing is, I think it's a little bit more serious than maybe we're sort of just like glossing it over as. Like, he might not play. This is a short week. He didn't throw yesterday. His oblique, his ribs are really giving him an issue. It would not shock me, given that the 49ers are kind of just, they don't really have much to play for at this point, if that makes sense. Like, they're not going to catch the Eagles to get the bye in round one. They're going to win this division. I mean, the Seahawks losing last week was a gift. I mean, not to say they don't want to win this game, obviously, but I think the combination of the cushion they have, plus Kyle Shanahan's just sort of confidence in his system, I think they could definitely start Josh Johnson in this game, and it would be hilarious. But that's a situation I could see happening. I would say in terms of who's going to get extra work with Deebo unavailable, the obvious answer would be McCaffrey. I just think he's going to be more involved in the ground attack. It's 5 or 6 extra carries up for grabs. It's 5 or 6 targets. And all of those could just go to McCaffrey, especially if you got a quarterback like Josh Johnson in there. Ayuk will certainly see a little bit of a boost in his opportunities, in his volume. I think Ray McLeod is probably the fun answer, though. Like, in terms of showdown, he's super cheap. He's a gadget type player. Like, Shanahan's already in the media this week talking about how, no one can replace Deebo, and he's obviously not the same size, but Ray can do some fun things, and we want to work him in there. So right now, knowing how much uncertainty there is on this slate, Jawan Jennings isn't like crazy expensive, mind you, but I think Ray McLeod's probably like the guy I've zeroed in on in terms of my early showdown looks.
So this LaMarca, this is it's the better in me, the gambler in me, but can we not get what we had Thursday where it's like, it's kickoff's coming and the Rams have 3 quarterbacks active and who the heck is going to play? I don't know. Like, can we, if it's Josh Johnson, fine. If it's Purdy, great. But like, can we at least know coming up on game time? And I know we're still a little ways away from that, but can we know coming up on game time who is going to play in this one so it doesn't just screw up everything for everybody?
Well, I'll say this. I don't think it matters from a gambling / betting perspective.
It matters in the world of DFS, tell you that.
Yeah, okay. But like before last week, would you have been like, oh man, Brock Purdy's not gonna play? Oh man,
How are the
49ers gonna overcome the loss of Brock Purdy? I would imagine that if Josh Johnson starts, he's gonna be asked to do a lot of the same things that Purdy did last week, which was a lot of the stuff that Jimmy Garoppolo did before that. He's going to get the ball in the hands of the playmakers. And as far as overcoming Samuel, Deebo's a great player. He's a great talent. it's not like Debo is doing a ton for this team on a weekly basis.
Sure.
He gets roughly 5 targets and a couple of carries. And I think that will be dispersed throughout the roster. You know, Brandon Ayuk, probably one of the more undervalued receivers in football at the moment. I think he is really playing very well this season. He could get a few extra looks. Maybe they'll throw the ball more to George Kittle this week.
That's
by
crazy.
the way,
don't talk crazy things.
I mean, what? Why not? Let's throw the ball to the guy who is widely considered like the second best tight end in football. Maybe they'll do that. I don't know. Maybe they'll throw it more to the best receiving running back in the league. It doesn't matter. They have an abundance of options. Whoever plays quarterback is going to be fine. I've been super high on this team basically all season. And I'm not slowing down now. I don't get why this number is only 3.5. Seattle literally just lost to the second worst team in the league in the Carolina Panthers. They play no defense. The 49ers have the best defense in football. Like I feel like San Fran, I was shocked that I only had to lay 3.5 with them last week. And I kind of feel the same right now.
Gary, anything to add with that?
No, I mean, I'm with LaMarca. I would agree. I don't think that line moves if it's Purdy or if it's Johnson. I think that line might move just because a lot of people want to bet the 49ers, as they should. The Seahawks have been a great story. I don't necessarily want to take anything away from them, but when you start going through their schedule, this has been I think we can all agree this has been a down season for the NFC. Like when the Minnesota Vikings have been as big a storyline as they've been, your conference maybe isn't the strongest. So I think that's sort of someone had to go from being a 5-win team to an 8 or 9-win team. And it just so happened to be the Seahawks. Their biggest win of the season, opening night of the season, against a team we now know is absolutely terrible in the Denver Broncos. So again, I don't want to take things away. I think Geno Smith's played fantastic so far this season. Kenneth Walker not playing in this game. Value running backs as you might. I'm not particularly high on them in a general sense, but I do think Walker's a very good talent. He's probably not going to be available for this game. I just don't see how the Seahawks keep up. And mostly I just don't see how they stop this 49ers offense, which has proven time and time again, no matter who is behind center, they're just a machine.
It's not Trey Lance.
Yeah, as long as it's not Trey Lance.
That's the funny thing about how, like, a buddy of mine who covers the NFL tweeted this out the other day. I don't remember exactly what he wrote, but the spirit of it was it's just wild how with each quarterback injury, the Niners find a way to get better. From Lance to Garoppolo to obviously, what Purdy looked like against Tampa. Who knows? Josh Johnson.
But again, this is like their whole shtick, right? Like you go through like the EPA through per dropback single season leaders of the last 20 years. And it's like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, all these amazing quarterbacks. And then it's Jimmy Garoppolo and Matt Ryan's MVP season. Yeah. And Tua, who's just basically using an inverted Shanahan system this season. Like, this is the Shanahan system. This is the whole deal.
Mm-hmm. No, it's crazy.
I'm excited for my start in week 17 for them. I'm really going to light it up.
I'm pumped for you. I'm really, I'm going to get, I don't even know where they are, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to get tickets to that game.
Oh, I'm bringing everybody.
Yeah, I'm bringing everybody. That'll be great. Let's as much as I'd like to really dissect this game further, we will have time to do that in extensive, almost obnoxious detail when we do the show on Thursday leading into it. So make sure you tune in for that. I'm excited about this time of year. We get around the holidays for a number of reasons, but from a football perspective, guys, it's because we get football 4 days a week. We got a 3
That's what we needed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we needed. More football.
More football. Spend time with your families. Nah. More football, 3 games on Saturday. Not only that, staggered across the day, staggered across the entire day. You can live on your couch. 1, 4:30 and 8:15 Eastern time. So the Colts and Vikings, that's a matchup where Minnesota favored at home by 4. And then you got the Browns, Deshaun Watson led Browns favored against the Ravens, who in all likelihood will not have Lamar Jackson, but that is not official. I can tell you fairly confidently they won a Tyler Huntley. 3-point favorites, the Browns at home. And then the marquee matchup of the day, the particularly important one and probably the best game from an interest level standpoint would be Dolphins Bills, although has a wider spread, 7.5-point favorites. the Bills against Garen's Finns in that evening contest. What are we most looking forward to here, Lamarca, among these three games?
I gotta say, I'm looking forward to really all of them. I think they're three pretty interesting games. There's kind of interesting subplots in all of them. Well, at least if you're like me and you are betting against the Vikings, that's an interesting subplot in the first game. But
yeah,
no, for me, I'm probably most interested in seeing how the Dolphins offense bounces back, because for the life of me, I still don't know what I watched with them on Sunday night. This was a passing attack that really has been unstoppable for most of the year. And they ran into a group of like second and third string defensive backs and put up 127 net passing yards. So I need to know if that was a fluke or if teams have started to figure it out a little bit. I mean, they started talking about it during the broadcast that, the 49ers were dropping their linebackers deep, and that was kind of the same formula that the Chargers were using, and it seemed to really work. So I'm very curious to see if that was just a blip or if Tua can right the ship, because this is an important game for both teams, right? Buffalo wants to hold on to the 1 seed, and Miami, if they want to, win the division, secure their playoff spot, like this is a game that they kind of need as well. So I think that's the most interesting thing that I'm looking at.
Garen, take us behind the curtain on your Finns.
I mean, I would say the troubling thing, aside from what Matt was sort of outlining in terms of the Chargers' injury woes, particularly in the secondary in that game, when you were watching the San Francisco game where they were, underwhelming as an offense, but you can kind of write it off a little bit to San Francisco having the best defense in the league. There were missed opportunities in that San Francisco game. There were plays where if Tua hits a guy half a stride sooner, or, if a ball is a couple inches to the left or the right, you've got big plays. And it's like, okay, Mike McDaniel is scheming up things. They're working. The players just aren't executing. That game on Sunday, they just kept trying to do it was like just running into a wall time after time after time. I mean, 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out. They had no answer. The passing lanes that were usually open weren't open. Tyreek Hill dealing with a little bit of an ankle issue or a shin issue. He was limited today in a walkthrough practice. Mike McDaniel seems pretty confident he's going to play in this game, but Jalen Waddle was non-existent. Trent Sherfield was non-existent. Mike Gesicki was non-existent. It was not a promising game in the sense of, again, that San Francisco one, you go, oh, the opportunities were there. They just missed them. That game against the Chargers, I didn't even see any opportunities. Again, their best play was the strangest rugby fumble thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And then another play where, Tyreek Hill beat a guy one-on-one down the sideline. Occasionally, Tyreek Hill's going to do that. So nothing really sustainable in that game, and it's worrisome. And, there's going to be some snow. Tua's never played particularly well in the snow in the limited opportunities we've seen. The Dolphins don't play particularly well in Buffalo the last, 15 years. So, I would say justifiable why the spread is what it is, despite the fact that these two teams have been, statistically comparable this season, and the Dolphins already have a win. But my lean would be towards Buffalo. And I think the total is actually a little bit more interesting than anything because, you look at a Dolphins-Bills game in a vacuum 3 weeks ago, you'd go, 53 and a half, something like that, 42. And I'm not sure if that's more a reflection of the weather or just the books kind of going, what the heck happened with the Dolphins offense last week?
Time for the Snover, baby.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. All right. Well, we've got a few minutes left here. Before we go, let's get a little bit of NBA in. You guys are both well-versed on that subject for tonight. It's a 5-game slate, so not a lot of teams in action, obviously. You got some key absences across the league, although most of the studs are available. The likes of Joel Embiid, Giannis, Chris Middleton was a question mark last I saw. Maybe he's been ruled in.
He's probable. I think he's going to play.
Good. Anthony Davis,
right.
Jason
Drew
Tatum,
is questionable.
Curry, James Harden, LeBron, all these guys, they're going to be available tonight, which is good. Let me see. I'll just pull up the betting lines as well. But yeah, everything within 6.5, and a couple that are closer than that, obviously. I guess betting wise first, Lamarca, anything jump out at you, and then we can get a favorite DFS play from you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the game between the Bucks and the Warriors is just super fun. Right? Like we've seen these are the last two champs, right? And they're both considered contenders for the title again this year. You know, granted, the Warriors haven't gotten off to the greatest start, and the Warriors have been dreadful with a capital D away from home this year. So I'm taking the Bucks. This number's down to 3. I think that this is a spot you don't always get Milwaukee's best effort, right? They kind of are at the point now where they've been playing together for so long that they can kind of just put it on cruise control, win their 50 plus games during the regular season, and then ratchet things up in the playoffs. I think that this is a spot where we see an A-type effort from the Bucks. It hasn't been Giannis's best season. Chris Middleton's still working his way in. Drew Holiday is questionable, but I think that, you know, especially when you look at Andrew Wiggins not being available for the Warriors, who was, you know, arguably their second best player in the playoffs last year. Klay Thompson can't hit a shot to save his life outside of his last game, ironically. So maybe Klay is turning the corner, but for me, the Bucks should be laying a little bit more than 3 here. I'll take Milwaukee.
Gary?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about this morning on the Sweat, but the Pelicans only laying 2 on the road against the Jazz seems strange. I know Markkanen's back in the mix for the Jazz, but the Pelicans undefeated in December. They have a net rating of 11 points per 100 possessions better than their opponents in that span of time. I mean, they're really just playing incredibly well. Maybe this is sort of your classic letdown spot after back-to-back wins over a Suns team they've got just a little bit of history with, and created some more history this weekend. But I just think the Pelicans are so much better than the Jazz that I'm not scared of that spot, even though that line just does make me question what the books know and I don't. The other sort of interesting thing since we talked this morning, the Kings were 5.5 point favorites. We just found out De'Aaron Fox is going to be active for tonight's game about 20 minutes ago, and that line is now moved to 4. This is one of those something has to give games. The 76ers are 9-0 ATS their last 9 games at home. The Kings have covered at the second highest rate of any team in the NBA against the spread this season at 64%. So I would lean Kings with the points just because I do like how they've been playing lately. But like I said, this is a game where both of these teams are trending in a very positive direction. I think with Fox back, the Kings can take them down, but Joel Embiid could also just dominate that entire game.
I want all the Kings people out there. I know you. I know who you are. Look at me. Look at my eyes. I know who you are. All the folks out there who said, LOL Kangs, trading away Tyrese Halliburton. Team has no idea what they're doing. Look where they are now, baby. My man, Domantas Sabonis, leading the team back to the playoffs. We love to see it.
So before we go then quickly, how about a favorite DFS play tonight? Any price range, any price point, whatever, just a favorite one play, a guy to build around that you'd stick in your lineup, each of you. Lamarca.
The obvious answer is Chris Paul with no Devin Booker against the Rockets, who have been one of the best matchups in fantasy this year. Like, he's cheaper than usual at 6,200. He's just a no-brainer play, in my opinion, but I like the idea of pairing him with Malcolm Brogdon for the Celtics. You can get those two guys for a combined 11K, and I think that they are going to pay off really well for your 2 backcourt spots.
Garen?
Similar range, but CJ McCollum is under 7K for some reason. It's kind of hard to figure out why, especially with Brandon Ingram still out. The Jazz are that perfect combination of a team that's top 5 in pace so far in the month of December and also has a bottom 10 defensive rating in the month of December. I mean, they bleed points to virtually every position on the court, and McCollum's coming off arguably his best game of the season. I think he's pretty locked in right now. Seems like his minute allotment is back up to where it normally is coming off that COVID stint. I just think McCollum's too cheap tonight.
Well, if we're putting guys together just for funsies like LaMarca, and they're not related in the sense that they're not the same game, but I'll pair up Chris Middleton with DeAndre Ayton. That's a duo I think is going to do quite well tonight. And you can get them for right around 13,000, hair above that, because Ayton comes in at, what is he, 7,200. So something to think about tonight. Lots of good advice here, obviously, across the across sports and across the entire slate tonight, and looking ahead to Thursday in the NFL. But again, we will have plenty of time to further dissect that both Thursday on this show as well as on the Sweat the next couple of days. Make sure you tune in for that. But we want to thank Eamon, our producer, Daniel, our technical director, both these guys keeping us in check. We return to Simland in a matter of moments, 3 minutes away. As a matter of fact, you will have none other than the Patriots and Dolphins. If only it were, the Tom Brady days, it might be more fun than it's probably going to look, even in Simland. But that's just my bias reacting. LaMarca, Gary, and thank you both. What's that? All right,
Drew
bye.
Holiday out. Bye.
Oh.